This is my second attempt at this video. The first, that light flicker was back on the camera, so I just deleted the video. We've seen enough, I guess, of that. I don't want to cause seizures or issues for anybody viewing the channel. So it looks like this one is clean. There's no flicker apparent here. And well, this video, what it's about is the fabrication of the landing gear, and the way I'm using the aluminum tubing and the piano wire provided in the kit to make a more accurate scale representation of the gear. Now this is the right gear as we look from the front of the wing toward the rear. So if we line the wing this way, so we've got a right and a left, this one being the right. And I'll show you how it's going to go in. Let me put this on the pedestal real quick, or quickish, or maybe not so quick. Gotta love these unscripted moments. There we go. All right. So anyway, as we look at the wing, this is just going to insert into this area right here. Simply insert into this area right here, and that's going to be pretty much how it goes into the wing. Remembering that the nacelles still have to be applied to this center section. Right on this wheel, you can see that I've added the wheel hub brake. I think is what that wooden disc is supposed to represent. The drum brake housing. Don't quote me on that, but that's what it looks like it is from the images that I saw. So we'll be adding that to the left main gear as well. Right now I don't have that on there. You can see that's an improvement. This is the left without. Right. And this is the right where we've added the disc. Now obviously I'm going to be painting that. That's going to get silver. Aluminum paint. I believe it was a cast aluminum wheel, so that's why it's going to be painted that way. Anyway, infill on the lower underwing surface of the center section is ongoing. Okay, here you can see where I've drilled out the wing center section for the wiring right down the line. So the wires will come out. This will be left open on either side here and here for the nav lights and landing light wiring to come up into the fuselage, which will be mounted pretty much right about there. So as soon as the wing is leading edge and trailing edges are sanded, this will fit into that cavity under the fuselage, fit into the notch here. Let's hope it should. One way or another it will. And with those two small openings on either side of the center former, the wires can get up into the fuselage there and be tied into the battery and switch. Right, so anyway, why am I doing the aluminum landing gear detail? Well, I mean, that's a pretty fair representation of at least half of the landing gear situation on the Guillow DC-3. And this is what you get in the kit. So these two pieces glued together would equal one landing gear leg, and there's another similar part on that tree with the other half, the other set of gear. But you can see there's not, this is just vacu-formed plastic. There's no structural integrity to that. And even though you're putting this on over the piano wire, which would just go down both of the main legs here, there's not a lot to hold that wire. In other words, it's pretty sloppy in there. quite a bit of epoxy would have to be poured into this, almost like a mold, and then it would have to then be applied to the piano wire. And you're still going to end up with kind of a mess trying to get that together and get it cleaned up and get the the edges of it seam free and all that. Whereas with the aluminum, there's no seams. You're just sliding that on over the piano wire, easy peasy. And so that's why I do it the other way, and I do that on pretty much every one of these models, at least any that have exposed oleo type struts or landing gear struts of some kind, that aren't sheathed in a wheel pants, or what do they call those, landing gear fairings or of any kind. They're just exposed oleo strut. This is what I do. I use the aluminum. It's easy. You don't have to do anything special. The super glue will hold it in place, a perfectly good bond. As I think I have a video to show how that works. I've got the brass tubing here and there. Again, that would work with the super glue, but because of the structural, the tensile strength of super glue not being as great as with the epoxy resin, we'll be using the two-part epoxy, just a speck of it on the end of each of these 4 cross members, top and bottom. The lower cross member is actually the axle, the wheel axle, and we'll need to make sure we have a good adhesive bond there, so that'll be the two-part epoxy on those. Okay, so anyway, this I have to replace this. I can't. This can't be what we have on the airplane. It just, even if I did a great job of cutting these out and cleaning them up and it's gluing them together and removing the seams, there's still a couple things. They're too heavy. One, they're too thick, and they're too short. So what I had, if you remember the other video, if you look at it, I guess part 15 or 16 or whatever the heck it is, the wood section of that, the sandwich, and again this is just a pad of wood on either side of the piano wire, extended all the way down to the tops of these struts. And I made the struts the same length as the plan drawing, and as these are same length, thinking, well, they must have factored in all of the necessary math on the landing gear legs, and it turns out they're short. They're way too short for the airplane. If you are to run the tops of these struts, or the tops in this case of these struts, all the way up under the wing, and until they're flush with the underside of the wing, you've got something, a landing gear leg that's just far too short for scale, and would look kind of silly on the airplane sitting on the tarmac. So what I did was I cut them just about in half. This is about 1/4 of an inch at the top here, and then added the lower part of the X bracing, or the upper half struts that go to the upper half of this scaffold landing gear, scaffold style landing gear. And then when it's inserted now into the wing, it'll only go about halfway where it was shown on the plans. In other words, this landing gear leg would have inserted in to the lower wing all the way up to here. And with the checking that with the nacelle half, the lower nacelle half in place, it just looked, it wasn't correct. It wasn't to scale. So I made this adjustment. So if you're building this kit and you're wondering, how does the gear go together, and you're looking at the drawing, and it may be fine, if you're posing the aircraft in flight with the gear down, you probably wouldn't notice it as much as you would just having it set on a shelf with that shorty landing gear on it. But if you want it to be more correct, you'll only shove about half of what they're asking you to shove up into that wing, and just go to about there instead of all the way up. I think it would have gone all the way up to here, is what I'm saying. And you can see that's way too short. When the nacelle, in this case, extends all the way down to here, you wouldn't even see this upper knuckle, which when you look in photographs of the airplane on the ground, you can clearly see that. The gear leg is obviously at least, and I say at least this long. This would be a representation of how it would look at this length as it were compressed standing on the tarmac. As the airplane comes off the ground, the oleo pressure is released. These shocks actually extend down, so the gear's longer. When the gear is fully extended in flight, these legs are longer than they are when the aircraft is standing on the ground because of the weight of the airplane pressing the oleos in and shortening the landing gear leg. So this is more a representation of how it would look on the ground at this length. If I wanted to pose it as if in flight but with the gear down, this might be an extra eighth or even a little bit longer than an eighth, longer than it is now. The wheel being about 1/8 of an inch lower than it is here, if not more. So, we split the difference, is what I'm saying, on the landing gear leg. Okay, so that's why we're going through the trouble, in this case, of making these, handcrafting these aluminum landing gear legs rather than just using the kit provided. Not knocking it. I mean, it's this is more or less what the gear looks like. It's just in my view, it's a little too stocky, a little too thick, and then it would be difficult to clean up and render a scale appearance from that. Okie dokie. So I'm going to continue working on the center section underwing infill until it's completed. Once this is completely infilled, we'll start taking a look at how the wiring is going to go. I'll be attaching the outer wing panels probably at the next phase, and then we'll complete the wiring, running the nav lights all the way to the wingtips. We'll attach the 2 outer wing panels, and then I'll infill the undersides of both of those, and then we'll start infilling the top sides and then shaping the wing. And once it's completely shaped and almost completely prepped for paint, I mean, we're going to get this wing pretty well finished. Then we'll look at the nacelles. You don't put the nacelles on until the wing sanding and polishing and finishing is done. Putting them on before that would impede our ability to smooth the wing. So the wing has to be assembled and completely smooth before the nacelles can go on. And then once the nacelles are on, we can take a look at how the motors are going to mount, how the firewalls are going to go in. Look at these engines mounted to those once they're painted and all that. Finish those motors up, make them look nice. And then the last step on the center section on the wing will be inserting the landing gear legs. Right? And we'll button up all the lights, make sure we have lenses for everything, make those look good. And then we'll assemble the wing to the airplane, and then the tail go to the airplane. The tail wheel will go on one of those last steps there before paint, and then we'll get her painted. So again, if you missed it, we're doing the Western Airlines Native American motif. The Indian head, it was called the Indian head Western Airlines, red over white over polished metal. It's not going to be, a true polished metal look on this airplane. It'll just be that gloss aluminum paint that I use on the metal surfaces, and then we'll use racing white over the top of the airplane, and then the red trim goes on along the windows stripe. So along here is where there's that red stripe and a little bit of red flash on the tail, and then the white lettering and the white logo and the white stripes, pinstripes that run down that red band, and then the Western red letters across the top here on that white background. It's a nice looking paint scheme. If you haven't seen it, I mean, you can find it on the internet well enough. And I'll when I do the slideshow, it'll be incorporated in that. Of course, I don't do that till the end, but then you got to stick with it, right? So we're gonna, again, I want to do the best job I know how to do on this. To my mind, the DC-3 is a very important airplane for a lot of reasons. I mean, it was the first successful design of a passenger carrying metal-clad twin-engine aircraft with dependability. If you look at the basic shape of it, it's pretty much the essential shape of a 737. It's cylindrical fuselage, twin engine. The way the basic design of it. Granted, the 737's a jet, but it basically captures the essential modern day twin engine airliner in plan, form, and shape, more or less. So that's one thing. The other, of course, is a contribution to the Second World War as a cargo aircraft, paratroop carrying aircraft. Basically in every theater, under every flag, the airplane flew and was vital to that effort. And so for those reasons, and the fact that it was a pivotal bush airplane in Alaska, in places where airfields were short, the cargo loads needed to be relatively heavy, and the supplies were vitally, desperately needed. Well, the DC-3 could get your material in and out of just about anywhere. Still can. So, tremendous aircraft. So that's why we modeled this one. And again, I'm doing this one as a civilian. At some point down the road, I'm sure there'll be a D-Day C-47 painted up and completed. Big fan of the airplane, so we'll probably see more of this aircraft on the Haywood Plains channel. I can't say for sure, but probably. All right, so that's this installment of our vlog on the Guillow DC-3 132 scale model. All right, thanks for watching. Have a great day.